Good morning, everybody, and welcome to week 3 of the college football season. This is the Tailgate brought to you by Campus to Canton. And as always, I am here with the motley crew here of CampusToCanton.com. That's Matthew Bruning. We've got Chris Moxley. We've got Brandon Hay. We got rid of Colin Becker this week.
This morning. That's right, baby. What's going on?
Checking in from
everybody?
the road. Felix Sharp is here. So we've got the crew here. We're ready to talk some college football.
I'm talk college football. I'm sorry, Austin. Go ahead.
I don't do this on your shows, you know. Okay, we're all good. Okay. We're gonna talk some start sits today, guys. We've got prize picks for it coming at you. We've got Jarek checking in with another by the numbers. Lots of good stuff. We're gonna start off with a little weekend review here. We've already had a couple of big games. UCF, Louisville last night, a bit of a shocker. Brandon, what went down there?
So early on, it looked like UCF would run away with that one. Louisville went for it on a fourth down early in the game. Then they didn't make it. UCF scored very quickly. UCF looked to be scoring quickly, but then Isaiah Bowser got hurt, and it kind of hurt their running game, so it was mostly passing. And then Malik Cunningham just kind of started going, running the ball and, hitting some open receivers and got that offense going. And then it was a tie game late. It's kind of a crazy sequence at the end. Louisville throws a pass, gets tipped, intercepted by UCF. You think UCF's going to go in for the field goal. Then UCF throws the ball, gets tipped, and then it's a pick six for the touchdown. So it was a crazy turn of events and a big upset win for Louisville.
Yeah, and you spoke on Isaiah Bowser getting injured there. Starting quarterback Dylan Gabriel went down in the confusion there on the last play. No concrete news there, but there is speculation he is possibly done for the season with a shoulder injury. That would be a big blow for the UCF Knights and for all of our UCF fantasy options, including Jalen Robinson, who had a touchdown last night, the aforementioned Isaiah Bowser, and everybody else there as well. So we are still awaiting news on that. Maryland, Illinois, also a close game there. Matt, what? No,
you're good.
Maryland pulled out the big win there. Close game. Any news from there to report?
No, just that they didn't look as good as I expected them to. We were talking a little bit in our Discord yesterday. I think Moxley, it was PJ, I think, was with me that thought both these games were going to be blowouts. They clearly were not, at least what I expected. Illinois' pass defense came to play in this game. They did a really good job of slowing up the wide receivers, and they got a lot of pressure on Talia as well to kind of make this a much closer game. They end up being able to stop Illinois right there at the end of the game. It was like 17-17, I think, with 50 seconds left. Maryland gets the ball back. They were able to drive down into field goal territory and kick the field goal for the win. Felix, what were your thoughts on Maryland, since you're the special guest here and all?
No, I just think that Maryland is this year's Indiana, as I've said since the offseason. I think Mike Loxley is doing a great job there. They're 3-0 now. They're going to be ranked next week. They weren't ranked this week, but they are going to be ranked, and they're going to be playing in some high-profile games. I'm trying to bring up the rest of their schedule, but they have a good team. They have a good offense. There's a lot of good pieces. We already knew about Raheem Jarrett, and Demas is starting to come into his own. So, so is Talia. So, I really like that team. I like what they're building. I mean, like next week they play Kent State, and then they've got Iowa and Ohio State. I mean, those are going to be two really big games. They're going to roll Kent State, and then Iowa's ranked the number 5 team in the country. That's funny to me. But then they've got Ohio State, and I've even said in the offseason that Maryland is going to give Ohio State trouble. I still think that that's the case.
And, you just mentioned Demas and Jarrett there. Both had nice games last night. Demas had 8 for 77, had a huge touchdown called back on what we could kindly call a questionable chip block penalty there.
No, it was just a bad call. You don't have to be nice. It was a bad call.
It was questionable. Jarrett 4 for 70 as well. That game probably was not as close as the score indicated. I thought, Maryland, Talia passed for 350 yards. They had 2 turnovers that kind of killed long drives that probably should have been scores. I believe they missed a field goal as well. So the game was a little closer than probably that score indicates. But 2 exciting games on Friday night. Hopefully we get a lot more of them here on Saturday. Matt, are we ready to kick this over to Jarek for his weekly segment with us? Okay.
Yes, we got to
all right.
By the Numbers with Anthony Richardson.
Perfect.
When you just don't understand the numbers, it's time to dive into the classroom with the beautiful mind of Jarek Backus and By the Numbers.
Thanks. Today I'll be looking at how Anthony Richardson's advanced stats stack up against previous players with similar opportunity. Anthony Richardson is in an interesting situation. He's sharing time with Emory Jones, who's the clear-cut starter, but everyone can tell Richardson is the most talented QB in that locker room. For reference, in Game 1, Richardson had 15 plays that went like this: 3 of 8 for 40 yards passing, and 7 carries for 160 yards and a TD. Good for a QBR of 99.9. Emory Jones had a 62.5 QBR in that same game. Richardson's second game, he went 3 of 3 for 152 yards and 2 TDs. And on the ground, he added 4 carries for 115 yards and another touchdown. Good for a QBR of 100. Emory Jones only had a QBR of 47 in that game. From his first 2 games, we can easily see Anthony Richardson's specialty is rushing, but he hasn't been a slouch in the passing game whatsoever. Now that we've reviewed what he did this season, let's see how that compares to other QBs in the past. For this comparison, I looked at players between 35 and 75 PPR points on the season. Richardson is sitting at 55, so this gives us players who had similar production. Richardson has an adjusted yards per attempt at 21, which is insane. I filtered for everyone over 14 adjusted yards per attempt because I'd consider any value above that elite. Anthony Richardson has earned a 1.46 EPA per play so far, which is unheard of. So I filtered for all players who earned above a 0.6 EPA per play because this gives us the top 5% of all players. This gives us our population of players with low opportunity but high efficiency when given the chance. So who shows up? Our list shakes down to Connor Kramer of New Mexico State in 2017, Mitch Trubisky in 2015, Nick Fitzgerald of Mississippi State in 2015, Kyler Murray in 2017, Brett Gabbert of Miami of Ohio in 2020, and Casey Thompson of Texas in 2020. To be honest, I was surprised to see any names I recognized on this list. Trubisky, Murray, and Thompson are the players Anthony Richardson comps to the best because they're all 4-star recruits, or in Murray's case, a 5-star recruit. The big difference that stands out is in the passing department. Richardson only has a completion percent of 54, whereas most of the others are over 70%. Then again, Richardson blows everyone out in rushing. I'd be remiss if I didn't point out the caveat to the study. This is a very low sample size, and his production now is virtually impossible to carry through to the end of the season. The key to his outlook is just how much he regresses. Regardless of how this turns out, Anthony Richardson is a fun player, and I look forward to watching him this year. Maybe we can revisit this later in the year to see how things shook out and look at his comps with a larger sample size. Now back to you.
Oops.
Oh, he's muted. He doesn't even know it.
Jarek is so good with these segments. It's just really excellent information. You get to see how efficient Anthony Richardson has been. He's not going to be efficient today. I mean, they play Alabama. He's injured. It looks like he is actually going to suit up for that game. I think that that's a bad decision when you have hamstring injuries. Those injuries can reoccur, especially given his role. He's going from cold to hot, cold to hot, cold to hot, not staying on a bike or anything like that. He's gonna be susceptible to injury. But I mean, absolutely one of the 5 to 10 best athletes at any position in the country, and we've been saying it. We've been saying that Anthony Richardson is someone that folks need to grab, and we're kind of seeing his breakout. He's a Cam Newton, Lamar Jackson type, and can't wait to see his development. But just a great segment by Jarek.
Yeah, really good player. What does his pricing usually look like for DFS, Chris? Is he just like you're way overpriced considering the amount of touches that he's likely to get? It seems like a risk. I think you're muted, Chris.
Everyone is muting themselves today.
But that's
Everyone.
That's bad. No, he's 6,600 this week, and that's kind of pricey considering you don't know his role and he's against Alabama. So I'm not playing him. He's actually more than Emory Jones, despite having like a less solid role. I think he's just a more explosive player, and they recognize that. But those aren't those. There's a lot of risk like inherent with them this week, especially against Alabama. So they're priced fairly, probably. It's just, do you really want to play them? People will, and people might win because of it. It's just
scared money don't make money, Chris. Scared money don't make money.
I got you. I'm scared. I'm not playing them. I'm scared.
Speaking of some scared money, we've got some prize picks discussions here to be had because we want to win you guys some money. If you guys are not familiar with prize picks, it is a really cool website where it is player props. These are things that we all know because we play DFS, we play fantasy, we know these players, we know the matchups. So it's player props. You have to parlay multiple player props into each other. And obviously, the more props you play, up to 5, the more money you can win. That is just the basic idea behind it. If you have never played before and you sign up with promo code C2C, you get a match on your first deposit up to $100, and then you get a free year-long membership to campus2canton.com. So great value there. If you want to give this a try here as we give you some of our picks for the week, feel free to go ahead and do so. And then let us know how much we won you, because we love to hear it. All right, Chris, let's go to you first. Some quarterback plays that you like this week on prize picks.
So there's a few. So I like Desmond Ridder going over 0.5 rushing touchdowns. I think that is a fairly interesting number. He has 13 rushing touchdowns in his last 12 games. I think he can do that today. I think he'll have to be more involved than he usually is. I don't think Indiana is a great team, but I think they're a better team. And so I would not be surprised if he grabbed a touchdown on the ground this week. I like that one. I also like Jack Plummer going over 242.5. I think that game has shootout potential, even though the over-under is below 60. I think both of those are fairly fast-paced teams. They're top 20 in the country in terms of plays run, and Notre Dame has left a lot to be desired. So I like Plummer, 242.5. Sam Hartman, same idea. I think that game has sneaky shootout potential, and I think that they're going to struggle to run the ball a little bit more than they are in the passing game. So I think that Wake takes to the air, and you see Hartman go over 256.5. I also like Seth Hennigan, 282.5. I think the total for that game is already out of control. I think it's either high 60s or low 70s. And so I think Hennigan's going to be a big part of that. I think
that's Memphis, Mississippi State.
Yep. And so I think that's a pretty big back and forth game. And, I think y'all love Brandon Thomas, but I think that it's a game where you're just going to see massive passing volume back and forth. And then my last one for quarterbacks is Brendan Lewis going over 36.5 rushing yards. I think he is to be very involved for Colorado this week. And I think that against Minnesota, he's probably going to need to do a little bit more. He already has more than 36.5 rushing yards in both games this season. They haven't played World Beaters, but they did play Texas A&M. It was an impressive game. I think he could easily do that against Minnesota. I think that's one of the better values on the entire slate.
And hint for those listening, not only are these picks useful for prize picks, there's also a lot of start-sit potential in here, guys, as we're going to be talking. So pay attention to that side of things as well. Brandon, we'll come over to you. Any quarterback plays that have caught your attention this week on prize picks?
Yes. So one is CJ Stroud under 324.5 pass yards. I think, in this game, they're going to try to be more balanced and not throw the ball as much. And hopefully, their defense can hold up better against a lesser opponent. So I see them being more balanced, and that just seems like a high number for me. Adrian Martinez over 0.5 interceptions. I think against Oklahoma, they're going to fall behind. and Martinez is not good when he has to pass, and he could have multiple interceptions. For Michigan, Cade McNamara, as we saw last week, their passing game is not very good. And even in the first week against Western Michigan, when it was more efficient, he still did not throw that much. And I think they're going to run the ball a lot in Northern Illinois. Gives up a lot of rushing yards. And lastly, Tanner Morgan, I have over 152.5 yards since Ibrahim's out. I see them passing the ball a little more, especially since Colorado has been doing fairly well against the rush. And I don't think they'll be able to rush the ball as well.
Yeah, that Tanner Morgan one, I did not see that previously. That is an interesting play. Matt, you have any quarterback plays standing out to you here today?
Yeah, I've got 3 of them that I really like. Brandon just mentioned Adrian Martinez. I'm taking the over on his rushing. I expect Nebraska to – I know Oklahoma's a much better team, but I think Nebraska can keep it close in the first half. And I expect Martinez is going to have to run a little bit. Grinch has got that defense at least looking really good last week. I think they're going to be good against Nebraska. His rushing is set at 54.5, so I'm going to take the over on that. Bryce Young over on the passing yards, 287.5. I almost think that's a smash. I do think Florida is going to keep this a good game for a little bit. They did a good job with that Kyle Trask last year, and I think the mixture of Emory Jones and Anthony Richardson could keep this even closer, so I'm taking that on Bryce Young. And then Sam Howell over on 312 passing yards, or 312.5. I expect Brendan Armstrong to be throwing all over that UNC defense. So I think Hal's going to have to keep up. I think it's going to be a high-scoring affair for both of those quarterbacks in fantasy, and I'm taking the over on Hal on PrizePicks as well.
Some really good ones there. These interception plays for quarterbacks seem like they hit. I play one every week, and they hit every single week because they continue to put quarterbacks like De'Ara King at 0.5 interceptions, Adrian Martinez 0.5 interceptions. Spencer Rattler is always at 0.5, and we know that he's good for at least 1 or 2 dumb throws every single week. Brendan Lewis is at 0.5. There is a lot of value on the and they never put them at 1 interception. They always put them at 0.5. So I think betting on a lot of these guys, KJ Jefferson's another one. Just a lot of these quarterbacks that aren't particularly accurate and aren't known for good decision-making. I think there's a lot of value to be had there with those guys. And I agree with Chris. I also really like that Sam Hartman line. Florida State's pass defense just is not very good. So I think that he's in line for a nice day there. Felix, is it worth coming to you for any quarterback PrizePicks plays here?
You know what? It's worth coming to me for storylines, and this Seth Hennigan kid is someone that I'm paying attention to. He played at Denton High School with Jatavian Sanders and Billy Bowman. That's a pretty loaded roster there for a high school team. You got 2 5-star athletes, and then a quarterback who's starting as a true freshman. He's just someone I'm paying attention to. Obviously, Matt was all on Grant Gunnell, but injury has prevented him from being what he could be. And you got a true freshman starting, and that's always something that we should pay attention to. It's Zach Wilson. It's that's why I want to pay attention to Carson Strong. It's why I want to pay attention to Connor Bazelak. These players who start as freshmen are players that we need to keep track of.
Yeah. And he's looked good here through 2 games so far. Let's go to the running backs. I thought there were some interesting plays here this week. Chris, we'll let you lead off here again. What lines do you like there for running backs?
It's also always worth coming to me, for the record, by the way. It's always worth it.
I meant no offense, sir. I meant no offense.
All right. I like Chris Rodriguez this week going over 111.5. I mean, I just think he's gonna he could do that in 2 plays probably. They played Chattanooga this week, and I mean, I'm not even sure he gets to 10 carries, but I bet he goes over 111 yards in those 10 carries. I love that line for him. I like Mayan Williams over 83.5. I think that Tulsa's they played Oklahoma State pretty tough last week. And it really came out, had a good game. I don't think that they really stand much of a chance against Ohio State, to be honest. And I think Mayan Williams is just going to get, a ton of touches in the first half and really be able to pile on those rushing yards. So 83.5 is kind of low. I like Keontae Ingram under 71.5. He's not really their starting running back either. He's splitting touches, and they're split like 40-60, and he's on the lower end of that timeshare. So I'm not really crazy about that number. And I think that's a game where we're going to see a lot more passing potential. I think that the over-under in that game is only 48, and I think that's probably a little bit low. I think we're going to see a back and forth between Slovis and Jaden DeLaura. So I don't really like Ingram, one, because I don't think he has the attempts, and two, I don't think he's the lead rusher on that team. Then I like Tyler Batty over 0.5 rushing touchdowns. He's so involved. I mean, for Missouri, I mean, he's been one of the best surprises, I think, of the season. And I think that he just gets into the end zone against a southeastern Missouri, southern Missouri. I'm pretty sure it's southeastern Missouri. Either way, if I can't tell you the team, that's probably a sign about who they're playing. I really like him to get in the end zone at least once this week, and I think he does it on the ground. I don't think he'll be super involved in the passing game, just because they probably won't have to throw all that much. But I really like him to score at least one. I think he probably scores multiple, but the over on 0.5 is a nice value, I think.
The risk on him is always that he just catches all his touchdowns, which obviously then does not help that line. But some good shots there. Brandon, do you have any running back plays that are standing out to you here this week?
Yeah, so one is Kenneth Walker for Michigan State against Miami. It did go up from last night. I felt better last night. It was at, I believe, 87.5. It's up to 92.5, but I'm still going to do the over because the Michigan State offense really goes through the running game, and I just don't necessarily think Miami is, going to be able to stop the run. So I would go over there. Cameron Peoples for App State, I have over at 94.5 rush yards. He's come close to or over 100 yards, and they play Elon today, so they should be able to run the ball fairly easy. And back to the Minnesota and the Tanner Morgan pick, I have Trayson Potts under 99.5 rush yards, so it kind of goes hand in hand of Morgan going on that over. And I have Jashaun Corbin over 85.5 rush yards. Fuller State, they lost last week to Jacksonville State, but the bright spot has been Corbin. He's the lead running back in that offense, and in that Norville offense, you want the lead running back because they're able to run the ball pretty well. So I think he'll get over that mark today.
Yeah, and then Matt, what do you like from the running backs here today?
So I agree with Brandon on Kenneth Walker. His was one that stood out to me. As he mentioned, it jumped up to 92.5 this morning, but I still think with the way, granted, Alabama, much better team than Michigan State, the way that they were able to kind of run on Miami, I expect with the offensive line that Michigan State has that he will be able to do the same. I'm actually going opposite of Chris here on Mayan Williams. I think that that Ohio State is going to come out and want to get that passing game going. They want to get C.J. Stroud going. I honestly wouldn't be surprised if we see a lot of the backups play in the second half if they are controlling this game, because we've not seen them. We've seen, I believe, Marvin Harrison and Mecca. Mecca's been on punt returns, but they have not been on the field that much. I think Ryan Day is going to want to get these guys a lot of work. So I actually think Mayan is not going to get a lot of work today. I think it may be Henderson getting a lot more of that run as they're going to start transitioning him. So I took the under on buy-in at 83.5. And then this might upset the two guys to the left of, well, I guess left on my screen, right of me on the screen. I'm taking the under on Brandon Thomas. I don't think they're going to run the ball that much today. It's set at 92.5. I actually have Brandon Thomas mentioned later here and some other stuff we're going to talk about. So I'm taking the under on him today.
Yeah, I mean, they're very possible there in a pass-heavy game there. The only two that stood out to me, really, beyond some of the ones you guys have mentioned, Sean Tucker, his rushing line right now is 101.5. Syracuse plays Albany, and he gets nice volume there. He's been over 100 yards here a couple times this season. I think that I feel pretty good about him going over 101.5. And then actually, I like the under on Trayson Potts, 99.5. Rushing yards on the day. As we said, Colorado has been stingier on the ground. They did pretty well last week against Isaiah Spiller and co at Texas A&M. I think the Potts might be in for a little more difficult of a day. Still might do some work in the receiving game, but I think under 100 yards effectively feels like a pretty solid bet there for him. It's apparently worth it always to go to Felix Sharp, so we will kick it over to Felix. What you got, Felix?
Yeah, Jahmyr Gibbs, 2.5 receptions over under. I mean, we're talking about one of the best receiving backs in the country, one of the best receivers, period, in the country. He hasn't been involved recently, but I think that they're going to get that going with him. And so I'm smashing the over on 2.5 receptions. Is that good enough, Austin? Was that worth it?
That was great. That was worth it. Yeah,
That was
especially
awesome.
you got to figure that.
Look
So
at me.
Felix, if you're taking the over on his 2.5 receptions, will you take the over on his 28.5 receiving yards?
I would also. Yep.
In a game where their quarterback might be running for his life for most of it, there against Clemson. The potential for dump offs certainly there. That's a beautiful segue right into our receiving plays here, guys. And Chris, you've got quite a few names here. What do you like?
I like Charleston Rambo over 57.5 yards. I think he's been really involved. And I think this is a game where they finally, I think Miami has a very solid contest this week. I do think this is like a get right game for Derek King. And I think Rambo really is the guy that they're going to look to get going. I think it has sneaky shootout potential. I mentioned that earlier. I think we could see a higher scoring game. I think Rambo's one of the big beneficiaries there. I also like Travell Harris over 63.5. That's another game where I think he is the clear alpha to me on that team. And I think he's going to be the focal point. Deshaun Stribling, who's a true freshman, has been impressive as well. But I think that Harris is going to be the focal point. And I don't know if they're really going to do much on the ground. So I think Delora and Harris is going to be a nice combo this week. I like Joe Nagata over 68.5. I think what Matt said about Ohio State applies to Clemson. I think they're really going to try to get DJU going against a bad Georgia Tech team. And I think Nagata is really the wide receiver one there. He's been impressive so far as the leader of that wide receiver core. I think 68.5 is pretty nice value. I think he could break one off for a long play and hit that. And I think even if not, maybe 2 or 3 receptions gets him there. So I like that 68.5. I think that DJU probably has sneakier upside than people realize this week because I think a very similar philosophy applies to him. I like Josh Van under 47.5 receiving yards. I have no idea why Josh Van is even mentioned in anywhere really. He stinks. He given me more anxiety than any player in the world as a South Carolina fan. So I do not expect him to have 47.5 despite scoring 2 touchdowns and I think having 100 yards last week. I don't think he does it. That Georgia team is just too good. I don't think South Carolina scores many points. And depending on who's starting, I think it's going to be Zeb Nolan, who's awesome, but I just don't think they get there. Zeb Nolan's I think his quarterback passing yard prop was like under 110. And I don't think Josh Van's getting 40% of that production, if that's even they even get there. So I don't particularly like that one. And then I like Sam Laporta over 3.5 receptions. So I was all on Marshawn Ford last night because I think that Prize Picks underprices tight ends pretty consistently. Sam Laporta has, I think he has 14 targets through 2 weeks. He's just so heavily involved for Iowa. And I don't think they're going to have to throw a bunch, but I think Laporta's going to be really the only target on offense. So 3.5, I think he probably gets 4 or 5. So I like that value as well. And then I also like Jakari Roberson over 6 receptions. I think that game is just going to funnel through Hartman and Roberson. I don't think that Christian Beal-Smith is going to have his best game of the season so far. And so I really like Jakari Roberson. He's the focal point of that offense with A.T. Perry. I think he could have a 8-9 reception day. And I mean, I like the Hartman over. I like that because I like Roberson to have a big game. So I think there's a lot of value on especially those last two, Laporta and Roberson.
The targets have certainly been there for Roberson here through the first couple games of the season. Brandon, what receiving lines are you liking here?
Yeah, so I have Michael Mayer over 73.5 receiving yards. That went up a little from last night, about 4 or 5, but I still like that. Like I believe Chris said that could be a possible shootout with Notre Dame's defense not nearly as good as they were last year. And Mayer seems to be, the focus always in that passing game. In the Alabama-Florida game, I have JoJo Earl over 44.5 receiving yards. He was more involved last week, and I could see him doing that. That could happen on one play, against that Florida defense. And since I thought Ohio State would run the ball more, and Stroud wouldn't have that many passing yards, I have Chris Olave under 6.5 receptions. I think he could still have a big yardage day. I just don't think he'll have that many receptions. And then David Bell, I have under 7 receptions. That just seems like a lot of receptions. even against that Notre Dame defense that hasn't been as good as they were last year.
So you're taking the under on his receptions. I actually like the over on his receiving yards, though. I realize that Purdue has not played particularly good defenses yet this year, but he's got against Oregon State week 1, he had 8 catches, 134 yards. And then last week against Connecticut, he had 6 for 121 and 3. He gets targets. I am taking the over on his receiving yards at 109.5 there. Some other names that I like this week: Jordan Addison over 67.5 yards against Western Michigan. Pitt's defense is not as strong this year. They've been a more defensive team over the past few years. This year, they're more of an offensive football team. I think that they're going to throw the ball a decent amount today, and so I think Addison can get over that 67.5 there. Treylon Burks, I'm taking the under on him probably all season. I feel bad for him with KJ Jefferson there, and they just run the ball so effectively that they don't need to pass it anyway. His line is at 89.5 receiving yards. That seems crazy. I don't even think he has 89.5 on the year so far this year. I know this is the kind of game where if you're playing fantasy, you want to fire up your Treylon Burks for Arkansas there with a weaker opponent. I'm just not confident in KJ Jefferson, so I would take the under there. Brock Bowers, under 3.5 receptions. It seems high for me. I realized that he got 6 targets a couple weeks ago, and I don't remember exactly how many he got last week, but he's getting these decent games off of low target totals, and that does not seem that particularly sticky to me. So 3.5 seems a little high. And then Calvin Austin, as we said earlier, this is probably going to be a high passing game there from Memphis against Mississippi State. His line is at 5.5 receptions. I think that he gets 7 or 8. I think 5.5 is way too low. So I'm taking the over on Calvin Austin, 5.5 receptions. Matt, what do you got for receiving plays?
Well, I'm going to piggyback too right off of you, and I'll start with those two. Calvin Austin, I have the over on his receiving yards at 102.5 just because of what you mentioned. I mean, he can get that on 2 catches with his ability to get down the field. So I think he's going to go over there. And then Brock Bowers, while 3.5 definitely seems high, I think he can go over on his receiving yards with 54.5 because same thing, he can do almost all that in one play. I think both those guys are going to go over on theirs. And I have Chris Olave going over his 105.5 again. I think they're going to be throwing the ball all over Tulsa, and Olave seems to be the one who has the best chemistry with Stroud right now. So I think Olave is a smash over as well, even though 105 seems a little high because I do think the backups are going to play a lot in this game. I think he goes over.
Yeah, and just Aeneas Smith, Chris, 72.5. How do you feel about that line?
I just saw it as I was scrolling through Prize Picks. That's so dumb. Zach Calzada sucks. Like, he's so bad. I just like, I want to be nice. Like, he just isn't a good quarterback. Like, I didn't think Haynes King looked good. Then I saw Calzada come in, and I felt like I had to write an apology letter to Haynes King, and I said, I'm so sorry for doubting you because I saw what the other option is. But, I mean, 72.5 for Aeneas, where is that even coming from? Like, I don't think they're going to have to throw the ball a lot, and I don't think they want to throw the ball a lot, so I would be shocked if he had 72.5. I think that line is way, way too high.
It feels like they priced him just looking at the fact that they play New Mexico and not really factoring in any of the quarterback situation. That's the only explanation I have for some of the lines that they have in that game. Some weird stuff.
That doesn't make sense. That just doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah, Felix, you have one of your Felix's guys in here this week that you like some of his lines.
Yeah, I mean, let's talk about Samori Toure, the transfer from Montana to Nebraska. In the offseason, the question was going to be, is it Xavier Betts? Is it going to be Omar Manning? No, it's absolutely Samori Toure, who is gobbling up all the targets for Nebraska. I think Nebraska gets boat raced today by Oklahoma. We saw it last year, Oklahoma kind of coming to the form in the middle of the season. I think that they start that today. I think that Nebraska is going to have to pass the ball a lot, and when they do, they throw it to Samori Toure. Over under 4 receptions. I'm taking the over on receptions, but I'm taking the under on his 72.5 yards. I just think that he's going to get 4 or 5, 5 or 6 receptions, but be under that 72.5 mark, and he gets all the targets there. And it might be the second half where he accumulates those stats, but I like Samori Toure on the over of 4 receptions.
At the risk of sounding like a dummy, I'm not familiar with the word boat raced. So if you could fill us in on what that means.
I mean, I think that this is a 20-point game. I think that Oklahoma actually smashes Nebraska today.
Thank you for dumbing that down for me. I do appreciate that. All right, guys. So that is our Prize Picks plays. Again, if you guys have not played before, prizepicks.com, promo code C2C gets you a match of your initial deposit up to $100 and a free membership here with us. So what more could you ask for? All right, guys, let's get into some start sits here today. Colin and I gave 10 each starts and sits on the Campus Canton pod. So I'm not going to touch any of those on my list this week. But we have quite a few names here. I think some really interesting ones, some good discussion. Matt, let's just go right to you first. You're the first one here on the list. Who do you like this week to start?
So I am starting Tanner Mordecai, as you can see down there, 45-63, 71.4 completion percentage, 628 yards, 11 touchdowns, and just 2 interceptions on the season. I think he's going to go out and have a really good game today. I've got him with about 320 passing yards and 3 touchdowns. I expect Mordecai to be a top 12 quarterback this week, as well as Desmond Ridder. You guys talked a little bit about his Prize Pick stats. I think he's going to pass the ball enough and rush as well. Over 200 passing yards, I think over 50 rushing yards, 2 rushing touchdowns, and a passing touchdown. Desmond Ridder, I have as a top 8 quarterback this week. And then last but not least, Rashawn Ali, running back from Marshall. He has been very good rushing the ball and catching the ball. I think he is a top 15 option at running back again this week. I think he hasn't really broken 100 rushing yards. I don't think he does that again here, 90. But I do have him for 30 receiving yards to break the 100-yard total mark and a touchdown in both rushing and receiving this week.
Yeah, Mordecai has been on a tear this season.
Yeah.
That offense has been really fun to watch. I know maybe we're getting into maybe some guys. I don't know. I don't see if anybody else has these names. Are you starting all of the SMU, receiving options with him, or are there any other guys there you like to pair with him?
That I would.
I put you on the spot, so let me just toss a few stats at you here, and you can kind of do with that what you will.
Okay.
They basically have three big receiving options there: Rashee Rice, Reggie Roberson, and Danny Gray. For those that are not familiar with the SMU offense, Danny Gray so far has been the best fantasy option, and he has the most targets on the team. He has 15 through 2 weeks. Roberson and Rice both have like 8 or 9 targets on the season, and they've both been okay. Roberson has been probably disappointing, depending on where you drafted him. And then Ulysses Bentley on the ground, who had that big run last week, but was ineffective week 1. Any of those guys stand out or not particularly?
I mean, Gray is a guy that I've been starting. I want to say it was it Kyle Francis with you, Felix, when you guys did your episode together that he mentioned him? I want to say that's who I heard about him from. That's why I have him in a couple of my C2C leagues. Go ahead.
No, I don't remember Kyle mentioning Gray specifically, but I mean, Gray had a good season last year before he went down with an injury, so he's just continuing on from what he was doing last season. If I could throw this in here, I'm sitting Ulysses Bentley. Ulysses Bentley has only had explosive games against North Texas. Last year, the beginning of the season, he had that 200 and however many yard game against North Texas, was very inconsistent. After that, and then this past week they played North Texas and he goes off against them again. That seems to be the team that he does well against, but he can struggle against other teams. So I'm if you have better options, I think that I don't know what the word is, but Ulysses Bentley can be coal in your stocking.
I like Louisiana.
Yeah, so the only
I like him this week. They play Louisiana Tech. I don't think they're a good team. I'm not really worried about it. I'd be surprised if you had better options, I guess is really the point. I don't know if there's that many better options than what Bentley can provide on a week-to-week basis. It's I think I'm on the other side of that. But I do understand that there's risk involved. But what is it? Scared money don't make money?
That's what they say. Some people.
What they say, yeah.
Some people are saying.
The only wide receiver I feel comfortable starting is Gray, and I actually might start Grant Calcaterra today just because tight end is bad, and I think he could easily get a touchdown today, maybe 30, 40 receiving yards. So I think that could help you out at the tight end position because really there's about 5 guys you feel comfortable starting there, not just on college, but on the NFL side too. So Grant Calcaterra and Danny Gray.
Calcaterra's been big this season.
Too. I think Rashee Rice is in play. I'm not sure. He's wide receiver 2 there. I think they could throw for a bunch. I'll start Rashee Rice. I probably won't start Reggie Roberson, but I would also start Rashee Rice in addition to Danny Gray. I think both are in play. And obviously Calcaterra. I love Calcaterra this week. I think he's going to, he's just been solid so far this year. Hopefully that keeps up and he doesn't have any more head injuries, but he's been impressive.
Yeah, he seems like a guy you really just have to start every week. I doubt you would have too many more better options there at tight end. Brandon, who do you like this week? Who are you starting?
Yeah, the first one is pretty obvious in Matt Corral. The first week he got kind of unlucky against Louisville. Some touchdowns called back and didn't have the touchdowns. Last week he had 5 touchdowns. And they play Tulane today, who's allows 40 points a game, over 300 passing yards a game. We kind of talked about Arkansas and how they like to run the ball. I like Traylon Smith. He's the lead back there. They run the ball 68% of the time. And Georgia Southern's allowing over 200 rushing yards a game. And the last is Breece Hall. He's had a slow start, only 138 rushing yards through 2 games, but UNLV has a horrible offense, and Purdy has 3 picks, no touchdowns, so I don't think they want to pass the ball. So I think Breece Hall gets right today against UNLV.
Yeah, had that rough week last week, and certainly wasn't amazing against Northern Iowa a couple weeks ago. Chris, you're the start sit king over at Campus to Canton here. Yeah, now that I've crowned you, impress us, Chris. Who are you starting this week?
I love Hendon Hooker this week. He was brought up on y'all's pod, but I actually wanted to double down on him because they've just had such a great matchup this week. They're playing one of the directional Tennessees, and not a good one, which is Middle Tennessee. I think they're playing East Tennessee. But last week he came in 188-2 through the air, 949 on the ground. Hooker's he was very solid last season for fantasy as well. He's just a prolific rusher, and I think, just does the same thing again this week. I'm really excited for Hendon Hooker season and over Joe Milton in Tennessee. I also really like my guy, and I'm going to bring up – I'm actually – this is 3 weeks in a row that I'm bringing up Bryant Koback because I just love Bryant Koback. I'm not scared to ever play him. I think if you have a question about whether you are starting Bryant Koback moving forward, you just play him. Toledo's 14-point favorites this week, and I think he's just so heavily involved. We saw him go for have a monster game against Notre Dame last week. This week, I'm not worried about it. I think you just start Bryant Koback, and you kind of just lock him in for the rest of the year. Think about getting a Bryant Koback jersey, to be honest. And then my final one is King Doru. I think it's pronounced Doru. I'm not totally positive. So if someone wants to correct me, knows better, that'd be awesome. I think he's going to tear up Notre Dame this week, like we've seen so many backs do already. He got all the first half touches when they played UConn last week after Xander Horvath's injury. I don't think it's as much of a timeshare as it looks like. He actually had fewer carries. It was second on carries last week, but all the other carries came in the second half with other running backs. I really like him. I think Notre Dame is going to be very solid.
Doru it is. All right, Felix, what do you like this week from a start-sit perspective?
Yeah, I mean, we talked about him earlier in the show, and I'm sitting Anthony Richardson this week. You would think that after last week's game and how efficient he was, that he would get more work against Alabama. I think that would be the case if he wasn't injured, but he is injured. He's still going to play. I think that that's actually a bad choice by Florida. I think that they should sit him this week and rest that hamstring, but I'm absolutely sitting Anthony Richardson this week. Not only are they playing Alabama, which doesn't necessarily scare me for a player like Anthony Richardson, but not only are they playing Alabama, but he's in a part-time role and he's injured. We should sit him across all formats. And then I'm starting Eric Gray. He got a slow start to the season against Tulane, and then last week against Western Carolina, 9 carries for 74 yards. We thought that he would be involved in the passing game, especially seeing his usage in the spring game. I think that Oklahoma starts firing on all cylinders, and that includes using Eric Gray in the most productive of ways. He's going to be used in the passing game. So I think that we get a really good performance from Eric Gray this week as they take on Nebraska. And like I said before, I think that they boat race Nebraska.
I still haven't gotten a firm definition of what that is. I just want to toss out. We've been talking a lot about this Florida Alabama game. I am starting all of my Alabama guys, especially in that passing offense. I don't think Florida has done anything this year to make me think that they're a top tier defense as a unit. They gave up 20 to USF last week. They haven't played anybody either. They played Florida Atlantic the week before that. This Alabama offense has been hot. They have weapons all across the field. They can threaten you downfield. They've got guys that are good after the catch. So I'm happy to start all of my Alabama guys. I am not scared by a top tier ranking matchup as it looks in the polls. Felix, you just
ain't skirt.
He ain't
skirt. I said you ain't skirt.
Never scared. Scared money don't make. That's the new slogan for the show, guys.
Scared money don't make money.
We will be incorporating that every week, and that in boat race for the foreseeable future. Some sits here, guys, and I'll come to you first here, Brandon. Who are you sitting this week?
Yeah, I'm sitting Dustin Crum. Plays Iowa today. They're allowing 200 yards and less than 12 points a game, which sucks because I have him in a lot of places. But I'll be sitting him. And we talked about Jahmyr Gibbs earlier, but I think Clemson is going to really focus on stopping him. And even though with the pressure, you would think he would get receptions. The first 2 games, he's only had 5 receptions. So, I don't expect a lot from him. And lastly, Zay Flowers. Temple is actually the 26th best against the pass. And with Phil Jerkovic being out, I don't really have a lot of trust in Zay this upcoming week.
I did not realize Temple was rated that high. I wonder if it's just because everyone can run it down their throat. I honestly don't know the answer to that question.
I'm pretty sure that's the reason. Yeah,
I mean that's still a valid reason. If you can just run the ball all game and you don't have to throw it at all, then yeah. I mean, by all means, Matt, who do you like as sits this week?
I mentioned the under on Brandon Thomas's rushing yards. I'm sitting him this week only because you likely got him off the waiver wire. So chances are you have 2 better options this week. I don't think he scores as like a top 20 to 24 option at RB this week just because of the low end rushing yards. So I think you've got better options. But as we talked on Devy Debate, he's definitely going to be one of the top scoring RBs at the end of the season. And then JSN, I know he had the huge week last week, but I don't know that he's going to be a focal point of the passing attack this week. I can still see him maybe getting close to 100 yards, but I don't think he goes 157-2. So I think that JSN is a sit for me this week.
How dare you?
I have a question. So
it's going to end up biting me, since that's who we sat last week. Go ahead, Felix.
No, for both you and Chris, are we starting Brandon Thomas or Ulysses Bentley?
Bentley. Yeah.
I would start Thomas.
But well, we know you would.
That's just me.
That's like asking Matt to be.
I have not talked to y'all about your Devy Debate Brandon Thomas discussion, but I am nowhere near as high on Brandon Thomas, especially this week. I do not think this is the week to play him. Mississippi State's defense is not as bad as people think it is, especially on the ground.
I mean, look, you're asking Austin and Felix to be objective about him. It's like asking me to be objective about Kyle McCord. It's just not going to happen. So, Moxley, who do you have as your sits this week?
I got Greg Bell first. He had a very solid week last week. He's actually just a really solid all-around running back. But they get Utah this week, and I know Utah was upset by BYU, but I think this is the week that you sit Greg Bell. I think you probably have other options. You probably drafted him late. So I'm probably avoiding Greg Bell this week if I can help it. Even though he's super involved. I'm also avoiding Ty Chandler. I have no desire to play him this week, despite this being a shootout matchup. He just hasn't been impressive. Like, I don't know what his upside is. They're not running it super often. It's not even that it's a split. They just have a really high neutral game pass rate. And I think this game stays close. So I think they rely on Howell. So I'm not really starting Ty Chandler. And I know people have better options than Ty Chandler this week. And then my final one is Jacob Copeland at Florida. I'm just not really starting anyone on Florida. He was really solid last week, but it's Alabama. And he's only really thriving on big plays. So he's not someone that's making it into my lineup unless you're really, really desperate.
Yeah, if you Ty Chandler is one that sticks out to me there. That if you were starting him anywhere, your running back room probably not great. The only one I have listed down here, the Texas A&M pass catchers. We talked a little bit about it earlier, as Chris so eloquently put it. Zach Calzada is bad at football. He is not good. I anticipate them against a weak New Mexico team basically just getting up early and then just kind of running the ball the rest of the game there. So I feel pretty good about starting a lot of my Texas A&M running backs, but I don't feel good about Jalen Weidermeyer. I don't feel very good about Aeneas Smith. I think those are two guys that if I have some better options, and Weidermeyer might be a hard one. You might not have a better option at tight end. I know some people just, it's tough on tight ends out there. But if I had another option, I would not be playing him this week. All right. So
can I add something to that discussion?
Yeah, go for it. Sure.
All right. Zach Calzada's prize picks yardage is 221.5. Just lock it in now. I missed it earlier. You have to lock it in. That's way too high.
Is it reasonable to say that he might get half that?
Yes.
Like seriously, that's
the other side in that game, Terry Wilson at New Mexico was like 180, which is also too high against Texas A&M. So I missed those earlier, but Texas A&M pass catchers and Texas A&M quarterbacks at Calzada.
There we go, guys. All right, avoid the quarterbacks in that matchup. All right. Last few minutes of the show here, guys. We give our picks for the week. We've got 5 games this week. Let's jump right into these. First game here, Michigan State at Miami. We talked a little bit about it earlier. It's a noon kickoff. I'm taking Miami. I think it's a very close game, but I think the U ends up pulling this one out. Felix?
I'm taking Michigan State. I think Sparty goes down to Miami, and I think that they keep rolling with Peyton Thorne, who people were using as a placeholder this offseason.
I'm with Felix. I'm taking Michigan State. I think Kenneth Walker is going to be able to run on them, and then I think Peyton Thorne will be just as good as well. Miami just not as good a team as I think they're getting credit for. I'm taking Michigan State.
I'm taking Miami. I think Miami is a okay team, and I think Michigan State's overperformed a little bit. I actually think this game's going to be close. I like Michigan State to cover, but I think Miami actually pulls it out at the end.
Yeah, sorry, Brandon. That was my bad.
So I'll take Sparty. I think they'll run with Kenneth Walker, and I think Miami isn't a very tough team, so Michigan State should be able to out-physical them.
All right, guys. Game number 2 here, the big one on the day. Alabama at Florida, 3:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time kickoff. Is there any doubt it's going to be Alabama? They're going to cover. They're going to roll them. I just don't think Florida is very good, and I think Alabama, conversely, is really good. So that's my pick.
If Anthony Richardson was 100% healthy, I would give them a slight chance. But since he's not, I'm saying roll Tide.
I'm not that enthusiastic about it as Felix there, but yes, Alabama. I don't really have any question about it.
Yeah, roll Tide, y'all.
Yeah, Bama rolls.
Wow, no one got. I think Felix everyone realized they weren't going to top his enthusiasm there.
Yeah, I might as well just kind of give the pick and move on.
All right, Auburn at Penn State, 7:30 p.m. kickoff. It's a whiteout game there in Happy Valley. I'm taking Penn State at home against an Auburn team that has just played possibly the weakest schedule in all of Division I college football up to this point. I think they beat Auburn there. Felix is muted, but
he's muted.
But we got the gist of it. Penn State.
Yeah.
No, Nittany Lions, Petty Valley, they take it down for the win.
Yeah, I'm all in on Penn State as well. I love the whole whiteout atmosphere, especially when it's at night. I think that stadium is going to be rocking. First time in 2 years that they will get a whiteout against a good team as well. I think Auburn will be able to keep it close for a little bit. Don't really love Sean Clifford in this game, but I think overall Penn State wins the game.
Yeah, this is a Nittany Lion win easily. I think they're going to cover the 5 points. Also, I think trusting Bo Nix on the road to do anything is a disaster.
Give me Auburn. This is a new Bo Nix. Give me Auburn. They're going in. They're going in and winning.
New Bo Nix.
Brandon,
the old Bo Nix.
I appreciate you giving me and Austin a game up on you. We appreciate it.
This must be your first year watching Bo Nix.
Yeah.
And Colin gave us his picks. He picked Auburn too. I don't know what happened.
Wait, what?
That's
Did
what
he really?
Says, so,
oh dear God! And he says he's a fan.
Are you just slandering him?
Okay.
I will not confirm or deny that. All right, moving on. What kind of a fan is he, really? Arizona State at BYU, 10:30 p.m. Eastern kickoff here. I'm taking Arizona State's. BYU just offensively kind of struggles, and ASU wears you down.
They absolutely wear you down. One of the best rushing games in the country. We'll see if DeMonte Trainium is healthy this week. I think that he is healthy. He's going to be playing. So they got that 1-2-3 punch with Jaden Daniels, DeMonte Trainium, and my boy Rashad White. So let's go with the Sun Devils.
I mentioned this on Devy Debate. I thought this was going to be a high-scoring game, and I thought Hall was going to be able to actually pass the ball for over 300 yards. I'm taking BYU. I think Arizona State's a little bit overrated. I don't know if Trainum is fully healthy. I think that could affect him a little bit, and I'm not sure I trust Jaden Daniels to be able to bring Arizona State down on a crucial drive and win them a game, so I'm going to take BYU.
I'm taking the Sun Devils. I think BYU has a hangover. The quotes that you saw out of BYU last week acted like they won the freaking Super Bowl. They are not going to be prepared to play Arizona State, and Arizona State is just going to grind it out against them. So I like them, and I like the Arizona State money line. Just throwing that out there.
Yeah, I got Arizona State. I'm hoping Rashad White can continue with his multiple touchdown games.
All right, last game here, guys. Fresno at UCLA, a game that we teased a little bit on Devy Debate this week. And I'm taking Fresno. I think Fresno ends up winning this game. I think UCLA is a little overrated. They beat up on a really bad Hawaii team week 1 and then played an LSU team that I think we gave a little bit more credit than we should have coming into the year. Fresno, the toughest game they've played yet. I think Fresno pulls it out. And at the very least, that's 11.5-point spread, or at least it was earlier in the week, and that just seems egregious to me.
I don't know that Fresno State is the toughest game that that UCLA has had. I mean, they just played LSU last week. But that said, Jake Haener was this close against Oregon from getting some respect from Austin, and this week he's going to actually pull out the upset and get the W. So I am also taking Fresno State to beat UCLA.
I am taking Fresno State as well. I will echo what Austin said. They have UCLA has not played a very good team this year, and I think that Fresno State's passing attack is going to be the best. I'm sorry, LSU is not that good. Keishon Butte is amazing. The rest of that team is not that good. I think the passing attack that they're going to get from Fresno State this week is going to be better than anything they've seen so far. Plus, you've got Ronnie Rivers. I think Fresno State ends up winning this game.
No respect. Get no respect at all. This is what Chip Kelly has been building towards. This UCLA team has put it all together. I like Fresno State to cover. It's 11 points, or it might be 11.5. I think that's a little too much, but I think at the end UCLA just takes it home. I really like them this week, and I think this is gonna be a really good game. But I'm taking UCLA.
All right, give me Fresno State. I think the Charbonnet train stops here.
Did you change that pick late?
No, it's been on the sheet as Fresno State.
Now I feel like I don't believe you. All right, guys, those are our picks for the week.
I'm the only one on UCLA. Are you serious?
Looks like it. Yep.
Thanks for giving me the game. I'm gonna crawl back in.
I mean, if you want me to give you an update on the standings really quick, you can use the help. All right, so let me pull that up really quick because it's not pretty. I know for sure. Let's see here. Going into now week 3, we have got myself and Austin now sitting at 12-3, as well as Brandon, but Brandon's going to drop with some of the bad picks he just made today. Mr. Colin Decker is sitting at 11-4, and Moxley, you're bringing up the rear at 10-5.
That's not too bad.
Isn't Mox the analytics guy? What's up with that? Austin's an analytics guy too.
The nerds are getting beat, man. Vegas is beating up the nerds so far. We're losing money.
Oh, I hope that you guys have better luck as the year goes on. All right, guys. Second hour of the tailgate coming back to you here. Mr. Alfred, how are you doing today, sir?
Hey, everybody. I'm doing great.
Yeah, and look who just joined us. Mr. Will is here too. How's it
going?
What's
going on, guys? What's going on?
Pops right in, doesn't he?
The whole crew is here. Mr. Sharp, what's going on, man? It was a good show. I was listening in. You guys had a good show. Still taking some notes. I'm always looking forward to that first hour of the tailgate, man. Great show.
What's up, Will? Yeah, I'm sitting here at Atlanta. Went out last night. Got up for the show this morning. So
that's
living
right.
my best life.
You might be like 10 minutes away from me.
I went to Paparazzi last night. Do you know where that is?
Oh no, I'm
sure you don't know where that is.
No,
I'm sure you do
I'm
not
not
know
on
where
the
that
town, bro. I fell asleep on the couch at like 10:30. That's my life.
I do know where Paparazzi
let me just
is.
say there were no Alfreds where I was at.
Yeah.
What is that supposed to mean? I don't know what that's supposed to be, but I'm not going to take offense.
It's not a bad thing.
All right, all right, we're live. Let's go.
All right, guys, enjoy your second hour here. From the rest of us here from the first hour, good luck this week on your campus and CFF lineups.
All right. Welcome to hour number 2 of the Tailgate. This is where Will and Chris and I are going to talk to you about DFS. We're going to talk to you about the bets that we have made and stuff that we like today. As it pertains more to the immediate, today, not necessarily long-term fantasy stuff. Will and Chris, I know Chris has been on the hour 1. Will, you just got here like me. So how's everybody doing today?
Thriving.
Great to hear.
Well, first of all, I gotta give it up, man. I like Mox's jersey there, man. Chris, I like that UNC jersey. Is that a sign for today or what? Let me know, man, because you're always giving out good nuggets, man. So just need to know.
No, I'm just I'm just Sam Howell guy. I gotta rep Sam Howell because the slander in the streets about Sam Howell is insulting.
It's not great.
I am tired of hearing Sam Howell slander. I don't know if they're gonna win today, but I gotta defend my guy. So
I hear you, man.
We're rocking Sam Howell, and we got Carolina behind us pulling out the upset against Georgia.
Well,
wow,
all my stuff going today, man. I mean, game of the year.
Yeah.
Shirt on. I'm sure I will be pretty miserable around 8:00, but for now, hope springs eternal. You never know.
I like it, man. I like it. Last night, man, we had a couple of good games, not only betting wise, but also DFS wise. So that was a pretty interesting, man.
Yeah,
that was
using Will's stuff, man. Dante Demas.
Cunningham, Cunningham, I put him down there as the only player on Louisville to look after. So, hopefully some people got on him. I mean,
I remember your article said he can get it done on the ground. I think he had 2 rushing touchdowns maybe.
Yeah, and 99 yards rushing. So he was only one yard shy of 100, but
1 yard shy. So yeah, that was good. I had a nice night on DraftKings as well on the short slate. So we got a big slate today, though, guys, and let's just get right into it. We have an hour to get through everything, of course, before kickoff. As we always do, what is our new ons, new offs, Chris, since we recorded Why Wait Till Sunday? I'm going to throw one out there. Our old standby, Jarrett Doege, again, comes in as a value. I'm not super excited about playing him, but I did the same thing I've been doing where I take the prize picks, yardage lines, and then, do basically yards per dollar based on the DraftKings salary and see if I can identify some values I may not have otherwise looked at. And Doege comes in again as like the best value when you just look at passing yards, which is just, he's just disrespected. Now, the thing that he doesn't do is he doesn't run and he doesn't seem to throw touchdowns. I mean, I don't understand it. He has pretty good yardage totals, but West Virginia just does not seem to throw the ball into the end zone for whatever reason. But again, I mean, and I think in cash games, perhaps he's so cheap, 6,200, and he's projected for 250 plus yards. He gets a couple touchdowns. I think that's a great value. It's kind of boring, but just don't forget about him. He's so easy to forget about.
Yeah, well, I don't know. I think that game goes under today, and so I'm a little worried about what the upside is there. But I do think he is a solid floor if you're, if you need to fill out a lineup. I don't think it's crazy. I think he's super viable in cash. Let me say that. I think in cash games, he's a really nice, like a lot better play than he is in tournaments. I think tournaments, I don't know. What was his price on DK?
62.
That's not bad. Yeah.
I mean, it's so cheap. But yeah, I think in tournaments, the upside's probably not there. I mean, you have to go for 303, which seems unlikely. I think in cash games, though, it just allows you to do a lot of other things. But yeah, again, not sexy, but man, either Prize Picks is way off on him or DraftKings is, because his salary is just so cheap for a guy who's going to, his over under is 260 or something like that passing yards. When you add in some rushing production, so what I do is I take the passing production that Prize Picks has, and then occasionally for the quarterbacks who I know are going to contribute in the rushing game, I do add some rushing yards. And when you do that, you go from Dogie being one of the better guys to the three big running quarterbacks on the slate, King, Martinez, Lewis. They all come out nice when you add in rushing production from a points per dollar.
Listen, let me just say that Adrian Martinez, okay, this week, he may be a good play, and not only in DFS, but also just in Prize Picks, and also if you're looking at the game total. We've seen what he's able to do the last 2 weeks. Last week, he had over 100 rushing yards. He had, I think, a touchdown rushing as well. And he's doing some things in the air. Now, Oklahoma, even though they're known to be on a very offensive juggernaut, they are not. Nobody has ever confused them to be stout on defense or have a tenacious defense. So, I think everybody should be looking at Martinez, especially when you have the other quarterbacks more expensive before him on the slate.
Yeah, absolutely. Chris and I touched on Martinez on the in-week show, but I think I wasn't super excited, and now I'm actually rolling out a ton of Martinez. I think you're right. I mean, it's just he's too cheap for the fact that he's going to just be the whole offense. I mean, he is the whole offense, whether it's running, passing, whatever.
He's in the middle of the pack at 7,300, right? So he's in the middle of the pack at 7,300, which means that gives you more money on the other side, whether you want to look at a running back, or even a quarterback in the super flex position, right? And then you have a wide receiver as well. So I'd be taking a lot of a long look at Adrian Martinez for today's slate.
Chris, and then you and I were texting earlier today. We're both kind of on, and it's probably not something revolutionary, but I didn't think of it till this morning, actually, but on a Martinez Rattler game stack.
Yeah, so I highlighted Martinez as one of the better values in my article that's, members only. So y'all got to sign up for Kansas Canton. It's $2.99 a month or $30 for the whole year. You can do the Prize Picks. Invest $100. Whole thing. A lot of ways to sign up.
Worth it.
A lot of ways to sign up. So I highlighted Martinez as a guy I liked as well. I think that Martinez is just different, right? Like you don't want to watch his game, but you want to tune in at the end to see how he did. That's really how I view Adrian Martinez. He's just hurts on the eyes, man. But I'm really interested in that stack as well. I do think that he's going to play a lot of catch up, and I don't know if they're going to score a lot of points, but I think that he will get yardage on the ground, which is what we're really looking for. And I really like Rattler as well. I find it easier to fit Rattler in than I do CJ Stroud, who I still like CJ Stroud. I'm not off of him. The price just makes it really, really tough this week because you want to pay up in other places. So I'm also ending up with a lot of Rattler Martinez stacks as well. And I think I'm using Martinez as my 7,300 area play more than I am not. And I still really like the guys that are in the upper 700s or 7,000s, but I think Martinez, there's risk with Martinez, but I think the upside is like higher than really anyone else there.
Yeah, and we touched on the midweek show about, Plummer and Hartman both being interesting, but neither of those guys run very much, and they're both more expensive than Martinez. And another guy who comes out actually as the number one points per dollar play, which is Derek King, who is a guy I really have not wanted to play and really not been interested in yet this season, but his price is way down today. What was it? Week 0 or week 1? He was like one of the most expensive quarterbacks on the whole slate, and now he's way down there. And if you put his yards plus adding in 44 rush yards, this is not including TDs. So you do have to bake in like what you think the game flow is going to be like and touchdown potential. This is just yardage production, which I think is a little more consistent. King comes as the best QB yards per dollar. So I'm playing some Derek King against a Michigan State defense that maybe they're okay. Historically, they've been okay, but they're going to be playing in the heat down in South Florida. I think that's an interesting and maybe a sneaky play for King. He started running last week. They lost 2 running backs to injury. yeah, I mean, there's a game script here for King. Maybe he has 15 rushes more because they don't have any running backs. So
yeah, the price point that he's out, at the price point that he's out right now, he's pretty decent at 7,600 for the day. So that may be also another interesting look, just for the simple fact that he's in the middle of the pack as well for quarterback. So and you know, like you said, with the running backs being out, he's going to get that production in the running game.
Yeah, I think he's maybe even a sneaky-ish play, because I do think Martinez Rattler stack probably going to be popular. I do think you're going to want to have some exposure there to that exact build, because, you know, it's just that game could be 38-35, you know, back and forth, and you're just going to sit there and watch the points score, and you won't have any of it. So you definitely, just for your mental state, you want to have at least one lineup you can like bank on, I think, in that one. And the other thing is, as I was thinking about it, and you're banking on this Martinez Rattler stack, right? And I mean, in my mind, if that stack's really going to go off, Nebraska's hanging with Oklahoma. So, you know, maybe it's if it gets to be a blowout, then I'm not really as interested in Martinez, because I think it just gets sloppy. But if that game can stay within 10 to 14 points, and Nebraska's putting enough pressure that Rattler continues to have to throw and use his primary options, in that case, I do think maybe you pay up for Mims, where I've been using a lot of Mario Williams because he's so cheap still. But if the game is intense, and I think Rattler is looking for his number one guy, you may want Mims, who's a little underperformed, but they play. He is good against Tulane, and he didn't do anything against the Cupcake last week. It could be a Mims game. I'm interested in that, but you do have to get creative elsewhere, because that's starting to add up your salary there.
Oh, yeah.
So those are some changes from midweek that I'm kind of thinking about. Chris, we talked about running backs this morning, and points per dollar comes out as Jarek Broussard from Colorado. Best value on the whole slate, according to Prize Picks, who has his over-under yards at like 92, which is a lot. And so I guess the question is, do you believe Prize Picks that that's his area? In which case he's a tremendous value at like 5,700, I think. Or you think he's going to go way under and you don't want to play him? You seem to be more of the latter thinking, Chris.
He's splitting carries. Brandon Lewis is taking carries from him too. They want to get Fontenot. I'm not exactly sure how to pronounce it. Involved.
I know. Yeah.
I mean, he's fine, I guess. I think I would rather go down to the King at 4,600.
Yeah.
And then, I think Will Shipley even, like, he's cheaper than him, and I think Will Shipley could be in play. I think Kobe Pace could be in play too. He's 4,800. It's like these guys are also in split backfields, but have, I think, a better chance at a more favorable game script. So, I mean, I don't think Broussard's bad. I just don't really like him this week. I think they're just better, cheaper options.
If you think he's only going to get 68 yards or something splitting time, that's different. Yeah. I mean, for whatever reason, Prize Picks seems to think he's going to push 100 yards, which in that case is tremendous.
I mean, he's good. So, he's a good player. I don't think it's out of the question, but I mean,
yeah,
not particular. I'm just not really interested in him.
I was just shocked. When I saw his Prize Picks line and wanted to bring it up. The other guys that once you add in some receiving work, jump to the top of the points per dollar, and I've added receiving based on Prize Picks receiving. So this is all based on Prize Picks lines. So Broussard is still number one, with just rushing, no receiving. King Doriu, Prize Picks does not have a line, and I know you like the King. We like the King here. Purdue's new running back. And I personally adjusted his number and added some receiving work, because as a freshman, he caught like 20 balls in like 9 games or something like that. So he definitely has that. We know they throw to running backs. They throw to Xander Horvath. They threw to King as a true freshman in 2019 it was. If he's the feature back, they're going to throw to him some. And I think 20 yards is probably expected through the air. That's a couple receptions. He becomes the second highest points per dollar guy. I think that's a slam dunk. Then the next guy that shows up is Gibbs. He gets 28 receiving yards, but I can't touch Gibbs. I can't touch anyone against Clemson. He shows up as a value at 5,100, but the touchdown equity would have to be so low. I can't do it. Letty Brown, I know your guy, Letty Brown. West Virginia is full of unsexy, productive players, and so he's another one. And
I think Letty Brown is sexy, by the way. I think
he's sexy.
I think he's sexy, real sexy. It's just always Letty. Have you seen him? Letty Brown's a good-looking dude.
Oh, he made it. Yeah, but his game is not sexy. He's 4 yards per carry. He doesn't break big ones, but whatever.
I brought it up on the show this week, and I brought it up in the weekly article. 21 and a half opportunities. I'm just like, you're so hard. It's hard pressed to find that under 7K. Like, it really is. And so, and he's super involved in the receiving game too. I mean, I think he's the whole offense today. Like, I'm not fading. So I made a bunch of lineups this morning, and I don't have a lot of Letty Brown because I'm paying up for Kyron Williams usually, and then paying down for King Doru. So like, it's hard to fit him in, I will say, but I'm not totally fading him. I do have him in lineups. He's just not my top guy. Kyron Williams is my top guy, and obviously the King. But
right. I mean, I love Kyron. He's in there. He's like the next guy in line when you add the points per dollar. So they're pretty much similar, Kyron and Letty. Actually, no, Kyron's better. Kyron's actually better than Letty Brown when you add it all in. I think he's got more receiving upside. The other guy we need to talk about, I mean, we did, but just to reiterate, he does show up as projected points per dollar, and that's Cameron Harris from Miami, who, we already talked about King. They're down 2 running backs. The other guys are true freshmen. Do you have any numbers, Chris, off the top of your head about how good Michigan State's like run defense is? Because I mean, I think Cameron Harris pushes 20 touches, and he's only 5,400, I think.
If you give me 1 second, I can pull up some data.
Okay, I'll give you a second. Will, any thoughts on Miami, Michigan State from a betting or game flow perspective? Because I think Cameron Harris and Derek King could both be big values today, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. And we talked about this game this past week. I think that it could be a game where Michigan State gets the best of Miami, and they do have production on both sides. So the line right there is at a good taken at the money line if you're looking at Michigan State plus 6 right now, which is still that. So I'm sorry, 6.5 right now. So I like that. If you're looking at a plus 210 right there, if you want to take a money line, or if you just want to take them on the spread, 6.5. I just don't think that even if Miami's able to come away with that win, what's the possibility of them winning by a touchdown or more? I'm not like you said, Alfred. I haven't been impressed with D King and what Miami's been able to do to start the season. So I just don't see them winning by 7 points or more.
So I got those numbers if you want them, Alfred.
Yeah, go for it.
They are against the pass. They rank 61st in EPA per pass attempt. They allow 5.6 yards per pass, so they're pretty good against the pass. Against the run, they're better. They rank 39th in EPA per rush. EPA expected points added. And opponent rush attempt yards per attempt is 3.4. So they're pretty okay. They're top 40 in the country. So, I think there's room for Cameron Harris, if we want to, if we think that's going to be a smaller touch distribution, which I'm
seems
not
like
sure
there
if
would
that's
have
true.
to be less guys getting touches.
Yeah.
I mean,
so he is averaging 17 opportunities per game. He's averaging 15 rush attempts, and he's averaging 2 targets. He's running 49 routes. So he's involved in both phases of the game.
Yep.
17 opportunities is pretty good. And that was before all the big injuries, coincided really. But with Andrew King, he runs too. So I think Cameron Harris is in play this week. I think he's one of the better values in the fight. I think I would rather play him over Will Shipley.
5,400 is just so cheap.
He and Will Shipley are back to back, and Will Shipley, he's a popular play. I've seen a lot of people talking about him this week, and I think he's a good play because I think that game is going to be out of hand and they're going to run. I prefer Kobe Pace. I think I prefer Kobe Pace to him as $700 savings too. The Will Shipley's priced up because he had 2 touchdowns last week, and I think Will Shipley's a great player. I think I like Kobe Pace more, and I think at back-to-back pricing, I think I prefer Cameron Harris because I know Cameron Harris is going to, he's going to have between 17 and 20 opportunities this week. It's the same idea. Like if a player's getting 20 opportunities at a discount, like it's really going to be hard to fade them outright. And I don't think Cameron Harris is someone that we should be fading. At least not 100%.
I'm with you. Yeah, I think you got to play some Harris. So and then honestly, after that, the rest of the running backs just like do not inspire me very much, hardly at all. So, I mean, I've kind of concentrated most of my running backs between, I think you've successfully talked me off Broussard. So maybe go bet the under on Prize Picks if you'd like, because 90.5 just seems so high. But the King, Kyron, Letty Brown, Cam Harris, I mean, it's kind of like those four guys I'm really interchanging in various ways. And there's just not a lot of guys below that I'm super interested in. And then receivers, like, holy smokes, there's like 10 receivers I want to play. I guess that's kind of normal. But the top end is just ridiculous. So the number one guy, when you account for his Prize Picks line plus the bonus, because there's Prize Picks assuming he goes over 100 yards, so I included a bonus there. It's David Bell, kind of by a mile. Like, he should not be the fourth most expensive guy or something. He should be the most expensive receiver, in my opinion. I mean, David Bell, touchdown equity. His over under receptions on Prize Picks is 7. 7 is his over under. Like, it's late.
And that's a steal, especially, I mean, if anybody's watched the first 2 weeks against watching Notre Dame play, they're going to give up yards. They're going to give up yards and they're going to give up points. So you're exactly right. Bell at 7,700 right now is a great pick. And he actually should be, if not the top or the most expensive receiver, he should be definitely top 2.
Yeah, and so he's actually a value, even though he's 7,700. I
have him in every lineup.
I know. I don't think I can make a lineup without David Bell.
I think I have him. So I've made, I think, like between 30 and 40 lineups, and he is in, I would say, like 85% of them.
Wow.
And where I don't have him, I'm replacing him with Javion Hiley.
Hiley's up. I mean, Hiley's second.
He's 700 more than Bell. That's the problem that I have.
It's too much. Yeah, I mean, what'd you say, 600 more? It's crazy.
Yeah, 600.
Olave is also more expensive than Bell, and I'd way rather have Bell. I have no Olave today. I mean, why are you going to pay 8,100 when 7,700 for Bell? They're all projected to go over 100.
Garrett Wilson's 2,400 cheaper than Olave, or 20. I don't know if it's 20, maybe 1,700 cheaper. Either way, it's like over 1,500.
Yeah, I mean, it's. In terms of points per dollar, it's Bell, Olave, Hiley, Wilson, and Olave is only there because he's projected for over 100, so he gets a bonus, whereas Wilson does not. But if you flip-flop those, then Wilson would be, the top probably. If Wilson goes over 100 yards, he's probably the top projected points per dollar. Ja'Carry Roberson, it's like there's 4 or 5 receivers. I'm like, you have to have these guys, but they're all fairly expensive, so you can't quite do it. Roberson against FSU is just slam dunk. If you want to go a little contrarian for Wake Forest receivers, A.T. Perry is interesting and much cheaper in a game that should kind of be a lot of points. I want to bring up one other guy who popped for me today when I did this exercise. That's Quian Williams for Buffalo. Now, I didn't really know much about this dude. I had to kind of look him up. He's actually been good this year. 2 games, 5 for 96, 8 for 93, has not gotten in the end zone yet, but that's really nice for 5,100. Those 2 games, he flirted with 100 yards. He's a 5th-year senior, transfer from Eastern Michigan. Back in 2019, he was actually their best receiver, most yards, I believe, and tied for second most touchdowns or something for Eastern Michigan. So he has a history of being productive. He was injured, I think, in 2020, and now transferred to Buffalo and has immediately become their number 1 receiver. Well over 30% of the market share there for Buffalo. And this is a game they're going to have to throw against Coastal Carolina. So at 5,100, he's kind of popped for me. I sprinkled him in, and I think he's going to be extremely unpopular.
So can I add something on him?
Please.
Please. I like him as well. I think he's been more popular than you think he is. I've seen some chatter about him.
Okay.
And
maybe
so
I'm on my ear to the ground enough.
Yeah, hey, I got people out there. Let me know Let me know.
Chris
the
has
deets.
sources.
Yeah, I do. I do. I got all my sources. So my sources on the ground say that the second leading receiver on Buffalo is also out this week. He
that guy
dressed for
Rodriguez or something.
Ruiz.
Yeah.
So I'm just saying that makes me maybe a little more interested than I would be otherwise, because I wasn't a super big fan of him, because Coastal Carolina actually has like the
Good
best
defense.
pass defense in the country and like the top 5 rush defense. So like, my favorite play is like I have a lot of plays actually like in this game from a.
So let's stay right there. Are we not taking a look at running back Kevin Marks Jr. for Buffalo?
I don't.
No, not at all.
It doesn't seem like it's going to be there.
Okay.
I just so he
doesn't catch passes.
Yeah.
I have a hard time with running backs that aren't going to catch passes.
Yeah.
They're 23rd. They're 23rd in the country right now in defensive EPA per rush.
They're good, and they're great against the pass. But I just think, I think the passing game is going to have to be how Buffalo kind of stays close, if they stay close at all.
Yeah. I mean, he's averaging 9 targets a game.
Yeah.
Like, it's a lot of targets per game
for 5,100.
Yeah. So I mean, they're beatable. I don't want to say they're beatable because I'm not sure they are, but that's the way they're going to have to beat them if they do.
Yes. Okay. Well, Chris, if you got anything else, those are kind of the guys who've popped for me over the last 48 hours since we recorded our other show. I don't know if you have anything else. We can move on to bets.
Yeah. So let me add one that we didn't talk about. The USC wide receiver. So I like Drake London this week because he's really the alpha there. But if Drake London isn't playing, or he's hampered, or he's injured, or whatever the situation is, I really like Taj Washington at 5,000. I think that's a really good play because he's a clear 2 there. And if London is playing even like 50% of the snaps, I really like Washington. But I also really like this is another value play that I think could come and like pop. Gary Bryant Jr., 3,600, and he'd be the wide receiver 2 if London couldn't go. So that's something to listen to very closely around game time. What is the deal with Drake London's back? If he's playing,
and that's a late
limited,
game, right?
What?
That's like a 3 or 4 p.m.
It's 3:30, and so so how I'm currently playing it is I do not have Bryant in most lineups, but I do have give me one sec.
I mean, who's like an easy flip in that time slot is the problem that you could like placeholder.
The running back for Tulsa.
Yeah, Tulsa.
The wide receiver for Tulsa was what it was.
Stokes actually is who you could flip out because I think Stokes is kind of an interesting play anyway against Ohio State. He is their number 1 receiver at Tulsa. I'm not jazzed to play him, but if you can placehold it, and then if Drake London is not out, if he's playing, just go with Stokes. But if Drake London's out, flip to Bryant, and that's both 3:30, so that might be a one way to play that.
Stokes is a little bit more, so you definitely have to either save money or get creative. But the play that I have been making is Sam Crawford. He's the exact same price as Bryant, and he's averaging 4.5 targets per game this year. I think you can also do it with Josh Johnson, who's averaging 7 targets per game, and he's only 3,300. So both those Tulsa wide receivers are good pivots off. And we just think they're going to throw all game and maybe beat Ohio State once or twice and a big play. But that's a way to play that situation.
Yeah, I'm down. All right, very good. That's some interesting stuff. Definitely, I mean, there's a lot of ramifications of Drake London. And so definitely need to keep an eye out for that. Will, what's up? How are you feeling about your wagers today? Anything that you have kind of gotten on? I don't know what's going on. Why am I getting these phone calls?
We're looking good. We're looking good. We had the in our 3 and out on the parlay, we had a UCF and Louisville going over 67 points that hit last night. So I'm just waiting for the other 2. I'm still trying to catch up to you, Alfred. Chris is right above me as well. So like I said, I'm just like one good parlay away from doing well. Now, again, we touched on Adrian Martinez. We touched on Spencer Rattler. I'm looking at Nebraska and this Oklahoma game in the first slot, in the early slot. A couple plays here. Oklahoma is favored by 22 points at Oklahoma. I think that spread is just too big. I think that spread is too big. So I'm gonna go with Nebraska plus 22 here, and then like the over under is looking pretty well. Also, we talked about it. I don't think it's going to be a play, or I'm hoping it's not a play where Oklahoma just goes ahead and runs away with the game. I hope it's a close game, and even if they do end up winning, it's one of those deals where like at the end of the third quarter, fourth quarter, it gets out of hand, or not out of hand, but they end up winning. But at the same time, Nebraska is able to go ahead and put up some points.
I mean, that was like 61 still, 61 and a half.
Yes.
And so, I mean, how does Oklahoma not score 42? Which then means Nebraska just has to get to 20. Like that seems very doable,
right? Yeah, it seems doable. And again, it's just one of those things where, right now, 62 and a half. I mean, it's Adrian Martinez can get you probably a rushing TD and can probably add another TD through the air.
And here's the thing with Martinez, even if he sucks and has 5 turnovers, that's probably points going the other way. So, like, I mean, Martinez is a pinball machine. I like that bet. I actually want to add that maybe. Austin, if you're listening, I like that bet. Austin's my gatekeeper. So, yeah, I mean, that's I think that's a great play, actually. So, very nice. Okay, anything else that popped for you, like, this morning? Or,
this morning,
that you were thinking about?
Again, just taking a look at that Purdue and Notre Dame game. That Purdue Notre Dame. I just don't understand why now it's at -7.5, right? So they got it started off at Notre Dame -7, and now it's at Notre Dame -7.5. So they're the books think that they're going to be able to win by more than a touchdown. I personally don't think so. I mean, if we watch the game, the first 2 games of the season, you would understand why. And even if you didn't watch the entire game, if you watched the last quarter of the last 2 games, you'd see that it was a pretty close with both opponents. They both come in undefeated, so I just think that Purdue's going to be able to hold their own and then cover that spread. And Chris always talks me into taking some money lines, being a little adventurous and taking some money lines. So I might have to sprinkle something on there as well with the ML.
Yeah, I like the Purdue money line. We talked about that on 3 and Out. I'm with you there. How about my money lines that I like? I had West Virginia on the 3 and Out show, and I've really come around on Michigan State. That game, that money line is very nice, and I think they could definitely cover 6, but like I think that's one worth going all the way on the money line, because if they come in and the way that I feel like they would have to win, they would just beat Miami up. And if they do that, or the way they'd have to cover is to kind of beat Miami up. And I think if that happens, they're like more likely to win than just squeak out a cover. So I really like it. The values there, I think, on just going for the full-blown money line on Michigan State. The only downside is, the heat, I guess, is the heat going to wear them down? I don't really take too much into that sort of thing, but I guess you could kind of consider it. But the key matchup, from what I was listening to Todd Furman's podcast, is a really smart guy, and that is the lines. I mean, and if Michigan State's line is able to kind of push around Miami's D line, I think they will control the ball and enforce their will, basically old school running. And I think that's a recipe to win, not just cover.
Now, Alfred, as you're talking, I pull up the weather. I pull up Weather Channel on my phone, and it's 88 degrees. So it's not like it's scorching hot. Now, granted, there is some humidity down there, but it's not like they're playing in like 98-degree weather, right? And going, I'm pretty sure these guys have gone through some 2-a-days already. They're back to get into it. It's the 3rd week, so I'm hoping that some adrenaline may be able to carry them to the winning column for today.
Other stuff I've done is Northwestern to cover 2.5, I think, to win by a field goal at Duke. I feel like that just seems easy.
I'm on the other side of that.
Famous last words. I just think Duke is clueless
Like,
I think
no
Northwestern's
idea.
clueless.
Maybe so. I guess at the end of the day, I trust Pat Fitzgerald over whatever the hell's going on at Duke.
Yeah.
And then Coastal, I think, rolls. I got Coastal covering the 2 touchdowns.
Yeah, that's tricky for me. I was looking at that game, but I just ended up staying away. You know, listen, in the Maction, I'm all in on Buffalo, so it's just hard for me to. And I just think that after what happened to them last week, I think they're going to be more inspired to get that win, or if not, keep it close. You know, at least keep it close. So even if they win by 10 points, Coastal Carolina, and again, Mox put out the stats out there. I mean, they have a very, very strong defense. But it may be a play where Buffalo does get, you know, the better on them on a couple of series or two, right? And is able to keep it close. And again, even if they do end up losing the game by 2 touchdowns, it's just like if the line was at, let's say, 12 or 13, maybe, but at 14, I'm looking at either like a push or a loss there if I go for Coastal Carolina.
It was 12 and a half when we recorded on Wednesday, and it's gone. I think it's gone 2 full points.
Yeah, I mean, it's been
14 and a half.
Yeah. I got it 14 even, but it may be 14 right now. Will, I know you're a big in-game guy. And sometimes you identify games before they even kick off. Like, I'm gonna want this in-game. Anything like that today? And what is, tell the people, like, what about a game do you identify where you're like, I think this is an in-game type situation?
Yeah, absolutely. So a big live game in-game betting, and that's the live feature here that you could find at a lot of different sports books. So what I usually do is I look at the initial spread at what they opened up at, and then I look at if they jumped a lot, right? So a lot means by like 1.5 to 2 points. So to Chris's point, that Coastal Carolina game may be interesting. What I'm looking at personally, especially for the 11 o'clock games, I'm looking at Nebraska at Oklahoma. That over under and the spread continues to creep up and go back and forth. So I'm looking at both ends there. And it may be one of those deals, like let's say Nebraska scores first, right? You may want to go ahead and look at what the live odds are and try to make a play on it. So always taking a look at that initially if I think that, because I personally think that right now, before the game, that Nebraska and Oklahoma game is too low on the over-under, right? You have it at 62.5. You know Oklahoma's going to put up points, like you said. For them to come away with 40-plus points in the game, that's not going to be surprising. Now, the question is, can Nebraska be able to match that? I think that they will be able to at least put up 21 points. So it's one of those things. I'm going to look at it. I'm going to go, like I said, I already hammered the over. But if it comes to like where Nebraska scores first, or if Oklahoma scores, let's say within the first 2 to 3 minutes of the game, I may have to hammer that over again. So I'm liking that game. The Purdue and Notre Dame game again. I just don't understand. I don't understand why they have Notre Dame at -7.5. They're both located in Indiana, so it's not one of those deals where they're going to have that much of an advantage playing at home. The guys from Purdue will be able to travel, and like I said, that Purdue has looked the best out of both of these teams. So looking at that, and then again, the over/under on that game, it may be at play. We see that that Notre Dame just loves to let the opposing offenses get scored points on them. So it might be another play as well. With that one, and we're looking at later on or early on this afternoon, we're looking at your team. We're looking at your game here, Alabama at Florida. I personally think that -14.5 for Alabama is a little bit too low. So it might be where I go ahead and take a little something and then just sprinkle within the first 2 quarters, depending on how that game goes. But again, they're playing in Florida, so we got to look at what the weather's going to be like down there in Jacksonville and see if it's going to be something that Alabama is not going to have to go against them.
Apparently, it's supposed to be rainy and sloppy, but I just don't think it matters. I mean, I'm a lifelong diehard Gator fan, and I am telling you, I just don't see how we hang with Alabama. Like, they're so far and away better. It would have to be some weird stuff, maybe some wonky fumbles, something bizarre. I think that the line is probably too low, and they're getting some credit for being on the road in Gainesville, which, is a tough place to play. But, the crowd will be ready to go. They'll be very loud today. But Alabama has a habit of taking crowds out of the game because they're so freaking good, and it's just like pretty evident within the first quarter.
oh, they're better and they're going to win. I mean, they just demoralize crowds. They're so good. Ugh, it's crazy.
Now in this game, I like a lot of player props in this game. I like a lot of player props. So we're looking at the we're definitely looking at the quarter at Bryce Young over here.
Hold on. Before that, I want to get to the props, but before that, I do want to ask Chris about a line he's got listed here on our show sheet. UMass, are you backing the Minutemen today? That is about as bad as backing UConn. So tell the people about UMass. I'm putting you on the spot. You have to explain this one.
I'm backing UMass at plus 22. I have a whole bunch of data that I go over when so this is not an uninformed feeling.
I would not dream that you do something uninformed, Chris.
So the data that I was looking at this morning about this game, I was shocked that the spread was 22. I think this is one of the based on the data. I don't feel great about backing UMass, but I am, because based on the data, this game should be like closer to a pick'em or like 3. I think Eastern Michigan is not good at all. They're really, really, really bad. I know UMass is really, really, really bad, but 22 points is a lot. Two teams that are awful, and I think it's gonna be closer than 22, man. The data just doesn't seem to support anything above, especially like double digits. Like, so the data has bit me the last 2 weeks pretty bad, but I just
trust the process, baby.
Congrats. I actually have one or two that I want to mention real quick.
And then we'll go to props.
Yeah. So I like Nevada 1.5. I think they're gonna win by actually a lot. And so they're getting Will Howard because Skylar Thompson's hurt, and I think they have no shot. Like, Kansas State has no shot to beat Nevada. Like, I don't think that game's gonna be close. I think 1.5 is a little too small.
Oh, Skylar's out.
Yeah,
Skylar Thompson's out.
Yeah, he's out for the year, I think.
Oh, man, I missed that. Okay,
so
Will Howard's not very good. So
yeah. So the other two that I want to bring up are team totals. So I think Buffalo under 20.5 is pretty solid. I don't think they're going to score a lot of points. I think Coastal's defense is very good, and they got beat last week by a rushing quarterback in Jason Bean. So but that is not who Kyle Van Treese is, and I think they're going to struggle a lot this week to put up 20 points. So I like that, and I like the under in that game. And I think, one of my favorite plays of this week that I found doing a little bit more research was LSU. I don't know if it's changed, so I put this in yesterday, early this morning. LSU 40.5 under their team total. I had it in the article yesterday, and I wanted to bring up here because so their team total is 40.5, and they're projected to beat Central Michigan by 19. So I think that's in play as well. Central Michigan plus 19, but LSU's offense is so bad. They put up 34 points against McNeese State last week. And it's not like they're efficient either. They're doing it on just such poor efficiency that it makes me I think that them getting 40.5 is honestly disgusting. I don't know who set that line. They're just guessing. It feels like a guess more than anything, right? So they're averaging last week 3.47 yards per carry and 6 yards per pass attempt against McNeese State. Central Michigan is better than McNeese State.
That's BAD.
Give me LSU under 40.5. I really like that play.
Yeah. No, I think that makes a lot of sense. All right, we are going to pull up the feed here. Shout out, if you don't follow them already, FBS Fantasy Foot is the account name. It's for college football, and they have really good injury updates. So we're gonna have that scrolling. We'll bring you any injury information. I just noticed that Collins is not warming up for Michigan State. Probably does not change anything how you feel about that game one way or the other, but just FYI. Will, run through your player props. So Prize Picks has been something we have been really loving this year. It is an app where they have props for yardage totals as well as touchdowns, interceptions, and fantasy point totals. And you can bet the over or the under on those lines. So we've been really enjoying the player props. And right now, if you go and do promo code C2C and deposit your first $20 or more, they'll match your initial deposit. And then also you will get a free campus2canton.com subscription for a year. So if you're listening to this and you want to go check it out, you have 15 minutes to go put in some prize picks, do promo code C2C, and get yourself a free subscription for everything that we put out. Chris's full Saturday game slate right up, Will's picks every week. I mean, it's just, and then there's so much more too, obviously. But prize picks, what do you like, Will?
All right, let's stay up with the morning games again. I'm big on this game, so I'm looking at a Spencer Rattler over 309.5 passing yards for the game, and then on the other side we're looking at Adrian Martinez over 54.5 rushing. I just think, like I said, he's going to be in some situations where he's going to have to go ahead and take off, especially last week rushing over 100 yards. I think that's definitely doable. And then De'Ara King, you talked me into him, Alfred. You talked me into it, so I just put that in real quick. 44.5 rushing yards. That's not a lot. That's just something that, hey, if they get a blitz coming in, that he could escape the pocket.
Yeah, one or two plays, he can easily get there.
That's it. I mean, he could probably hit that by halftime, right? So I'm looking at that. We're looking at some passing TDs. Again, I'm big on Spencer Rattler. I think he's going to do his thing. They got him right now at 3 touchdowns passing. Let me get the over on that, and then Bryce Young again. I apologize, Alfred, in advance, but
I know it's coming.
Bryce Young, over 3 touchdowns passing as well. I think that's something that's going to definitely be doable. Especially these are 2 ranked teams. They're playing away, so it's going to be one of those things. Okay, this is the first real test of the season going up against a top tier team. So let's just go ahead and put our name out there for the 2021 season, and let's get it done.
Yeah, I'm with you there. Speaking of, you mentioned the Bama overs, and I think earlier Chris mentioned the Florida unders. I'm under Jacob Copeland. Maybe you guys were talking about this in the first hour. His line is 67 yards receiving. That seems like an easy under. I mean, he's hit some big plays against USF, who has like the worst defense ever. I don't see how, if Florida's going to do anything in this game, I think they somehow find a way to do some groundwork. I don't see them throwing the ball around the yard. Emory Jones is a bad passer. Jacob Copeland under 67 is like, I think that's free money there. I really like Stephen Carr under 67 rushing yards against that Cincinnati front. That feels really good. Indiana is not going to be very good, but I do not see them like running the ball and or even committing to the run in this game. So 67 feels
real quick. What did you say his rushing yards is at right now?
I have him under 72.
Okay, yeah, 72.5. Yeah, okay, yeah, that's definitely
I may have said 60 something.
Okay.
Yeah, sorry. I also have Thorne over 219 passing. I just think, I don't know. It was kind of one of the, I don't have a ton of good data. I just think Miami's defense is not very good, and 219 feels low. Dorio, we've talked about him for, DraftKings, 52 rushing yards feels good to go over that. And Tanner Morgan is only sitting at 1 passing TD. I kind of like over 1. He could probably push that and just get 1, but 2 against Colorado doesn't seem crazy to me. I mean, I like those low passing touchdown to go over those sometimes, and he seems like a pretty decent candidate.
Well, listen, this just in, and this is just based off of Chris's great data that he just gave up. I'm just going to go ahead and put Kevin Marks under 82.5 rushing yards for the game.
That's nice.
Again, Chris talked me into it. He convinced me. He threw out that data, so I'm just going to go ahead and create a nice little 25 4-leg parlay, and if it hits, we're going to drink some wine. Or some beer tonight. We'll see. Or maybe have to get on some of that dark liquor,
Oh, yeah. Also, I might just do this every time Adrian Martinez is on a slate, over 1 interception. I mean, just add that on to any parlay you're doing. I think that's pretty reasonable. And then, the other one I kind of like is Jordan Addison, under 6 receptions. He has not quite been the target hog that he was last year. They've incorporated Lucas Kroll. They're doing another guy, I think that Chris mentioned last week on DraftKings show, but there's another receiver that's kind of getting in the mix. So last year is Jordan Addison all day, every day, and he's just less featured this year. And for him to beat me on that, he's got to go to 7 receptions. That just feels pretty safe. I think, he can push at 6 or probably go under that. I feel pretty good about Jordan Addison. I think that number's a little bit too high. Chris, you got any props for us?
Yeah, I also like Jacob Copeland under. I think 67.5 is kind of crazy. I'll go under every day, all day on my new enemy, Zach Calzada. It's 221.5. I mean, I know New Mexico's bad. Zach Calzada might be worse. He's just so bad.
So what about that line? What is that game line? I mean, Zach Calzada is so bad. I mean, does New Mexico have a chance to cover? What are we talking about? I don't really know much about Calzada, to be honest with you.
He's not good, is what you need to know, to be honest. He's just not a good quarterback.
I mean, New Mexico is not good. Like, Terry Wilson's not going to be like overwhelmed with Texas A&M. He just came from the SEC, so like their quarterback at least is not going to come into this game super, shell shocked, like some guy who's never faced a team like this before. So it's kind of interesting, and they can control the ball, run the ball with Terry Wilson. I don't know what the line is, honestly. I haven't even looked at that game.
So this was Calzada stats last week against Colorado. He went 18 for 38. That's a 47.4% completion percentage. Threw 183 yards. Only 1 touchdown. QBR of 49.9 against Colorado. So the 46.2% completion percentage, probably not very good.
So Texas A&M is favored by 30.
Yeah, I think they'll run a bunch. I think Spiller.
That game could that game could end up being like 30, 32-10, and you cover easily, something like that.
Yeah, and then I have slandered Zach Calzada all morning.
Yeah,
I am so sorry.
Pretty hard on the guy,
Mr. and Mrs. Calzada, and I hope Calzada proves me wrong. But his props are just so juicy. They're just like pumped up a little bit, and I'm just all over them. And I like Jack Plummer to throw over 1.5 touchdowns. I've talked about this game probably going over. I think it was one of my parlays on our on 3 and Out this week, and I think that Plummer it might be David Bell catches 2 touchdowns.
Yeah,
but I like Plummer going over 1.5. I think that he probably gets 2, possibly 3. So I think that's pretty good value. I brought this up earlier as well. I like Travell Harris, 63.5. I think he's the target hog there. So I think he's pretty interesting. So I don't have a ton of new stuff. I like one of my favorite other plays is actually Josh Vann under 47.5 yards. I think that might be my favorite play on the entire.
Josh Vann for
South Carolina.
Isn't that your team? Yeah. I mean, your team.
Yeah. So Zeb Nolan's over under set at 111 or 112. So we think Josh Vann's getting like 45% of that. Probably not. And even if they are, even if he throws for over that, it's not like Josh Vann's a good wide receiver. Josh Vann's got case the dropsies, man. Like he's been on South Carolina for 4 years, and he's just heartburn. Like every time I see him play, and I just don't see it happening against Georgia this week. I just don't know how many points they're going to score. And I don't think it's coming from Josh Vann.
All right, man. I like that. I like that's a good one. I'm going to add that right now.
I want to say something nice too. So let me say something nice. What is the Jake Bobo receiving? Do we know what his receptions are? Because I probably want over on that.
Over on Bobo? I don't
over
even
on Bobo receptions.
Because Duke wasn't on the
5.5.
That's
maybe,
high.
Maybe not. Give me Jaden Wally over 4.5.
All right.
Look, we're doing high score,
folks. We're just making bets.
As we go.
I like that. I like the game too. That total's insane, and I think there's going to be a lot of overs in that game. So I like Jaden Wally going over 4.5. I think he's going to kind of round back into form as the true number 1 there, and he had a good game last week too. So
yeah, it's been a weird start. Weird start of the season. So I mean, we're doing. There's not a lot of injury stuff coming in, so that's good because there's not a lot of panic. We can touch on for 5 minutes or so the night slate. We don't have anything formal out there, but if you need to recoup some of your morning losses, you can get on that night slate. And Chris, I know you were looking at prices. I gave it a glance. Some stuff to highlight. So it's South Carolina, UGA, Utah, San Diego State, Central Michigan, LSU, Virginia at UNC, Utah State, Air Force, Auburn, Penn State, Stanford, Vandy, Tulane, Ole Miss. I think Tulane, Ole Miss is pretty easy. You're going to want players from that game. There's really, the guys. There's not really a lot of mystery there. But one I wanted to highlight, I think would be a very nice play is Utah State players against Air Force. Air Force, if you look at their team stats on defense for the whole year right now, they look pretty good. But they played Navy, so pass defense is non-existent in that game. And then their only other game is against a college or a school called Lafayette, not Louisiana Lafayette, just regular Lafayette, which is definitely a FCS school. I don't even know if they're good in the FCS or not. Austin's brother went to Lafayette. Austin, are they good? Tell me in the chat. But they passed for like 240 yards on Air Force. Lafayette did. So that it's not like there's some shutdown defense. We don't know that much about the Air Force defense, but Utah State throws a ton. Logan Bonner is dirt cheap. Devin Tompkins is a great play. He's got 8 receptions in his first 2 games. And even their lead running back is like pretty cheap at like at $4K or something like that. So I think Utah State is going to be a key to winning the slate tonight. Chris, did you have any thoughts, or Will?
I like that. I like Devin Tompkins as well. So I didn't get a super. I'll do more today, and I'll probably tweet some stuff out. So follow me for that detail at Chris Moxley 19. But Michael Pratt, obviously, I think he has to be in your lineup. He's only $7K, super priced down. Some other plays I like Micah Bernard. He's the lead back at Utah, and he's only 4.7. They have TJ Pledger priced above him by like 2,000. Doesn't make a lot of sense to me where that's coming from, but it's Micah Bernard's backfield for the most part. He's the lead in a smallish committee. I think the total in the UNC Virginia game is 67. Antoine Green's the 2 there. He's only 5.1. I think that's a nice value off Josh Downs. I think Tyreek James is a really good way to get value in the Tulane game. He's their tight end, but he's only 3.9, and he's been heavily involved this year. So I really want to I'm targeting him a lot, and I really like Jelani Woods. I think Jelani Woods could have a big game at 3.7K or 3.4. He's the new tight end for Virginia after James Mitchell went down. He's like 6'7" or 6'8". Yeah. So I don't know why. I just love tight ends. I just think their values across the board, like everywhere. Tight ends just not getting enough respect.
Prize Picks has some tight end value as well. Yeah.
Yeah. Sam Laporta over 3.5.
Now, somebody that you guys didn't mention, I may be looking at a Bo Nix. Bo Nix over here for Auburn against Penn State. He's at 67. He's at 67. He's at 6,700. That's the only reason, right? He's at 6,700. So if you're looking at, listen, I think Matt Carroll's going to be chalk. I think he's going to be chalk. Especially what he's going to be able to do. But he's 9,600. So it doesn't give you that much wiggle room to play around with the other positions, right? You probably pretty much got to be spot on there. So Bo Nix, to me, in my opinion, may be a good look. He's another quarterback that could give you something on the ground. And we saw what happened last night in last night's game. With Cunningham, right? Nobody expected him to do what he did. At least I didn't. And if you look at their stats going into halftime, he actually had more passing yards than Gabriel last night. So, got to look for some of these diamonds in the rough. And I think that Bo Nix could be interesting going up against a Penn State team, which, I don't think their defense, again, it's not like the defense of old, but he may be able to pick up some points in the air and on the ground for you.
That's a good point. And then one more thing real quick before kickoff. Probably don't have any time to change anything, but Caleb Chapman is not playing for Texas A&M. He's like their 4th receiver, so it's not a big deal, but just one less weapon for your boy Zach Calzada. Maybe underscores going under for anything. I did just add one for Calzada while we were talking to go under that 224.
Yeah. AJ
That
Davis is
brings us
out for
to
a bit.
kickoff, folks. 11:59. Good luck to everybody.